Thank you for the compliments. Okay, so we are looking at the full moon, which the title of this video, I believe I called it a Mars full moon. So if you haven't had a chance to look at the chart yet, you'll see it in our Telegram group. And you can also, if you know how to pull up charts, I really recommend pulling up a chart and just getting acquainted with what it looks like. Oh my gosh. Because there's something, of course, something is much more magical about actually going under the sky and looking at the sky, because you're going to actually be able to see tonight, last night, tomorrow night, you're able to see the moon with Mars. And so there's something to be said about receiving the light of the planets in through the eyes and receiving the information directly from the planets. So we can understand as much as we can about the intellectual research that has been done, the patterns that have been noted by brilliant astrologers over the course of time. And then for us as astrology readers, or for people who are tuning into the astrological alignments in hopes of understanding more about where we are in time and space, what is being asked of us, and how to better engage with the time that we are in. So we're always in a certain phase of our lives personally. We're always in a cycle. So if I look at somebody's astrology chart, that's the first thing my eyes go to. What phase of time are you in personally? And then taking that and putting it into the context of where we are collectively. So, where we are collectively is what we're looking at with astrology. And then for you personally, what we want to look at is with this full moon is to see where we are collectively and how that is impacting you personally by looking at the houses of Sagittarius and Gemini. That entire axis is going to be really, really hot. It already is really hot. It's because I felt that this is totally an intuitive moment of sharing my intuitive insights. Yesterday, the day before yesterday, especially, we had a Moon Uranus conjunction, which was like, I was like, wow, I feel really in my body. Like I want to run and like, whew, like I had a lot of energy, but I also felt completely like cross-eyed, tired, like, oh my God, like exhausted. So the combination of those two things living together within the body of this Uranian energy of wanting to get up and make the changes and move mountains and just having that big feeling, but then also feeling, and then this is maybe because where it is on my chart, that Uranus moon conjunction in Taurus happened in my first house. So you want to look at where was Taurus for you when the moon went through Taurus. Then, there's that will impact everybody slightly different depending upon what phase of life you're in and what is being asked of you, what area of life you're being called to put your attention into. So, from that Moon Uranus conjunction, there was like the next day, which was also like, okay, I feel more action oriented. I feel more able to take all of that energy that's like a live wire. So Uranus, when I say Uranian energy, that's really relating to the nervous system. Uranus is a planet that directly co-responds with the nervous system. In Tantra Yoga, the spinal cord, I'm going to use this as a spinal cord. In my personal Tantra Yoga practices, there's something called expanding the center. So what we're doing, we're talking about Uranus, and we're also talking about Tantra Yoga. In Egyptian or Kemetic energy work, they call this Sakem. This is that spine, the energy around your spine. So what happens is that everybody has a spinal cord, and we all have an energy field around the spinal cord. So expanding the center means that just an average, what I learned this new phrase called normie. My friend gave me this term and I looked it up, and I'm learning about what is a normie, which is basically like normal people who are tuned into the normal program and are, just normal. Not that there's anything, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but that person will have a, don't let Dakota out here because he's gonna like attack me. Thank you. So the spinal cord is going to reach up to the pineal gland, and from there, it's either going to move beyond, because here is in Tantra Yoga is called the Balavat chakra, and this is where breath begins and ends. There's no breath that will be beyond the nasal bridge. So going beyond that is going beyond time. This is below here is Saturn and downward, and there's no better or worse. There's no hierarchy in actual reality of like which planets would be higher ascending or anything like that. So with Uranian energy, it takes us beyond the boundary of Saturn, and with our own energy center, that we're able to expand beyond our physical head, beyond the structure of our head, to reach up and be in relationship with energy beyond our own physical sense. So when we had in April, all visible planets were visible. And I have some great pictures of that. If anybody in the Telegram group is interested, I will be happy to share those images with you because it was stunning. This moment of realization that not everybody will be able to have a psychological experience that goes beyond the rings of Saturn. And there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, Justin, thank you for being here. Irene, thank you for being here. Sarah, I love you all so much. NPC, that's another word that I hear my boys talk about. What does that mean, Dominic?
I don't know.
Non-player character. So yeah, that is basically going to be somebody who doesn't, non-playable characters, yeah, who doesn't really have a concept of what is beyond their own mind. Like what, with like, for instance, with Neptune, we talk about non-personal love. They're in the background and they don't do much. So they are taking instruction and doing, I don't really know, honestly, I don't really know what they're doing. But so with the Uranian energy now, we are able to have a greater understanding about the expansiveness of time. Sounds kind of overwhelming. So going beyond Saturn's boundary, it is overwhelming. It can be very overwhelming. And I think that is why people choose, and righteously so, to stay within the boundary of Saturn. And perfectly, I can't overemphasize that. Like, it's perfectly fine. And it's important to also, for us who are looking beyond, I love this analogy that Justin's coming up with right here. So if you play a video game, they're the people that are just the shopkeepers, and they keep repeating the same things over and over. So now we also need to tend to what's below Saturn. We need to tend to our physical needs, emotional needs, tending to the practical things of our life, and doing that with this awareness that goes beyond just ourselves. So that this moon Uranus transit that we had a couple of days ago was extremely huge for Uranus is called the Great Awakener. It really awakens us to seeing and understanding more about our regularly scheduled program. So every time we have it once a month, the moon will make contact with Uranus, and it is an opportunity for us to be jostled awake into like wanting liberation, wanting freedom, wanting to know what is beyond the boundary of Saturn's rings. That can reach into what's beyond the boundary of the limitations I have imposed upon myself, what's beyond the boundary of the limitations that have been imposed on me by my culture, my community, my family, what you think you're capable of according to the circumstances that you're living in. Going beyond the boundary of Saturn means that you're looking beyond what you think is concrete. So when you look around in your space and you're visually seeing what you have created in your life, this is a Saturn experience. To go beyond Saturn is to have a realization that there's more possible. You start asking weird questions like, who made those curtains? Oh, they come from China. Okay, do I want to be sending money to China to like the global impact of what I'm like? These are the questions that come up with a Uranian experience. When you start doing those Uranian things and moving with more of a Uranian energy, your life has to change. You can no longer be grounded in the same, even the physical reality that you are grounded in. Everything looks different, everything tastes different because your awareness has expanded. So we went through that heavily in the last few days as the moon was transiting Taurus, getting ready for our full moon, which is happening now, essentially. So also, one more thing about that Uranian experience, because the north node of the moon is with Uranus, and we have all been collectively asked to look beyond Saturn's boundary with that Uranus being on the north node. So every time the moon passes by there, because the north node is there, that is saying that this is part of our us reaching progress in our evolutionary path to where we are collectively going as humanity. That nodal axis is the evolutionary axis, and it is extremely important for our growth and our evolution, and for us to be able to stay on the edge of honoring the tradition, respecting the past, respecting our ancestors. That's the south node, seeing where we've come from, and then constantly holding that tension of honor and respect for the past while moving forward in the north. And having Uranus on the north node right now is really giving us this big burst of what will create more freedom and liberation that is inclusive of more people. Uranus is like Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods and gave humans the fire. That's so metaphorical. And you can think about, now we have fire, we have this ability to transform, to do alchemy, to have light, to cook our food. So that is a Uranian experience. So Uranus asks us to break some rules. Like, which rules need to be broken right now? Okay, so now we get the moon moving into Gemini, which it is now. And tomorrow, December 7th at 8:07 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we will have Sun at 16 degrees of Sagittarius and Moon at 16 degrees of Sagittarius, making a perfect 180-degree aspect, which is a resonant polarity, meaning that there's two opposing forces that are in opposition. They are opposite to each other, but there is one thing that makes them the same. And in astrology, that one thing that makes them the same is going to be called a mode. The modes in astrology are, in the astrology that we can Google right now, it's going to say cardinal, fixed, and mutable, cardinal, fixed, mutable. I call them creation, stasis, and dissolution, because cardinal doesn't mean anything to me. Fixed, you get the concept, but it feels very stubborn, which, it's reasonable, but I don't like it. And then mutable, which does say that it's changeable. So my way, creation, stasis, dissolution. The creation signs are going to be the ones that are bearing the culture. They are the ones that are considered householders. They're the ones that initiate something, like the equinoxes and the solstices. I'm not going to get into a whole astrology lecture right now. If you're interested in those types of things, please join my school. I go really in depth on getting a basic foundation of what these things mean. But for the opposition or the resonant polarity between Gemini and Sagittarius, the one thing that they have in common, which makes them resonant with each other, is their mutability, their desire for dissolution. They want to change something. And with Sagittarius, because we're in Sagittarius season, what they're wanting to change, we can look at the surrounding signs to find out what it is that Sagittarius is wanting to change. So the sign after Sagittarius is Capricorn. And that is where we create the foundation. We build sustainability for the next 7 generations. And it has a heavy emphasis on creating culture. And then the sign before Sagittarius was Scorpio, which is a fixed sign, which means that there was a moment to be in our emotions, to go into the depth of what was created in the previous sign, which was Libra, relationships. So in in Scorpio, where we're in there's an ability to be grounded in the comfort of what was created in Libra, which is relationships. So we explore the depths of our vulnerability, intimacy in relationships, our emotions about relationships. When people die, the money, the inheritance of the relationships. So that's Scorpio. So Sagittarius is wanting to move us around from the fixed, the stability of Scorpio, move us around so that we're able to step into Capricorn season with crystal clarity about our own vision, what is true to us. These are words that are associated with Sagittarius. The truth of our vision, our aim, what we are aiming for, our philosophy for life. So in Sagittarius season, we travel, we explore, we take a weekend trip to a new place to adventure into that land, connect with the ancestors of that land, eat the food that grows in that land. So we're expanding our consciousness so that when we get to Capricorn season, we're able to clearly write what it is that we are going to be creating as a foundation for our life, who's going to be on that foundation with us, who's creating with us, who we are supporting with that foundation that we're building. So all of these seasons that we go through with the sun, it's not a metaphor. It's not just some weird astrological, what I used to call pop astrology, like just talking about the signs. It's like, oh, Sagittarius is really fun in the life of the party. Like it is actually an experience that we go through living in life. So now that mutability between Sagittarius, we've described it now. Let's look at Gemini. So the moon is currently in Gemini. What is it that Gemini is wanting to shift around? So we look to the sign before Gemini to see Taurus. Taurus was us feeling stable in our body from the stability that was creating in Aries. Aries is the protector of the tribe. So in Aries, we establish our boundaries, we fight for our boundaries, we go headstrong into the eastern direction, rising with fire and passion. So from that, we create a safety. We create a space for us to be comfortable in Sagittarius. in Taurus. So from Aries, we create safety so that we can sink into the luxury and pleasure of the beautiful bounty of fruits that are growing in Taurus. We're able, every time, Taurus to me is grapes and honey. What am I going to do with grapes and honey? I might make wine. I might make grape juice. I might just eat the grapes. How will I do that? My mouth is watering. Honey. Okay, so bees and honey and flowers. It is Taurus season. So, Taurus season, now we've really experienced our pleasure on earth or with the earth. So, from that stability, yes, that groundedness into self exploration of pleasure in Taurus, we move to Gemini. Gemini is information. The information that we have within us, the information that we receive that triggers things that we know within us. So those synapses firing off that gets us, I have an idea. Like when you have an idea, you can see in a lot of old movies, especially for women, when women had ideas, it was like laughable, like people would laugh about it. And then when somebody has an idea, I don't know why I just threw that in. It's probably something I'm processing with my own, what I would call like intellectual um, process. For women, I think it's a huge thing, like being the one that's smart and has ideas. The innovation thing is usually left for men. Even like Albert Einstein, you may not know this, but after reading his autobiography, or is it an autobiography? And also Nikola Tesla. Okay, like Nikola Tesla does attribute a lot of his science to his mom. And then Albert Einstein kind of alludes to the fact that his wife actually was a genius, brilliant scientist and gave a lot of ideas to him and held a lot of the ideas. But we as a culture currently, the innovation, the who's going to space, and like these things are mostly the realm of men. And yeah, so anyway, I don't know why I'm mentioning that. There's probably something connected with Gemini that for me personally, I'm working through. But Gemini is the zeros and ones. It does have to do with technology, information. Innovation is more of an Aquarius trait, which also will go along with Uranian experience. Okay, so let me just look at this chat box for just a second. Let's go, Aries, make the world safe for pleasure. Exactly, Justin. There's a strange guy walking around my apartment today. That's the thing. Like, I cannot be creative. I can't sit down and wrap rose bundles or blend chocolate or make anything if my essential safety is not secure, because I'm vigilant. I'm looking around and I'm like, where's my machete? Do I need to get the mace out? Do I need to call somebody? So yes, Justin, let's go. Make the world safe so we can experience pleasure. Tesla fell in love with a pigeon. That is true. Nikola Tesla was in love with a pigeon. It was his very close, dear friend. Okay, so I'm curious, Irene, you've been arguing about these things lately. So are you talking about I'm assuming that you're talking about women's ideas and innovation of things. So there definitely is a huge gap in our value of what women are thinking about. That's I think is a fact, and we need to. For us who are having ideas, it's important for us to get together and communicate and share about those things. So, yes, gender bias. Okay, so now, so what it is that Gemini's mutability, like we're going to talk about that, and then we'll look at that in relationship to Sagittarius. So, Gemini is changing our perspective. It's changing how we receive information and how we will speak the information. It's not just a speaking, it's writing, it's making a screenplay. I have this great class idea for using astrology for us to, it's called Creating Your Mythology. It's actually an idea I had back in 2014. And I've wrote a whole, like I have it together. I'm ready to start this thing where we're basically using the zodiac signs as the flavors, the planets as the active force, and then we're writing a screenplay for our own character, but through the lens of our own astrological chart. So this is Gemini. It is the representation of an idea so that we're able to move information in a way that is playful, creative, amusing. This is the entertainment industry. Amusement parks, the muses. Think about the muses. What did they do? They shifted the mind's focus on linear reality. If you think about those muses and the men that were like, okay, XYZ, we need to do this, this, and this. And then the muse comes in and like completely shifts the focus of what needs to happen, gets us into a playful, I'm waiting for Justin to chime in on the muses and sirens and all of this kind of thing, like how the shifting. And you can also just think about it from listening to a live band. If you're listening to live music and you can't really focus on work because there's something happening with vibration. Gemini has to do with vibration. There's something happening with the sound that is transmitting a frequency to more than your mind. It's transmitting a frequency information to your entire body, to the water in your body. So the water is receiving this vibration and changing it. Sometimes the musicians, the music, the creators of the music know that they're doing that, and they will give you a program through the vibration of the music. If you look at ancient Egypt, one of the things that they did with their power of Gemini, with their power of vibration, was they built these temples that were underground. There was huge pools of water. They would sing, they would do rituals, they would infuse that water with a message and then open a valve and send it underground to places far away where those other places would receive the message. So music, Gemini, the ability to transfer information through the waves of technology, through sound vibration, even I think these waves of the Wi-Fi, that we're able to receive the information and we don't even know that we have received the message. So this is a superpower that we need to know how to utilize so that we are, I put in today for the people who are in my membership, there is a video I downloaded today called Gemini Spell, and it has to do with the spelling that is put into vibration so that we are more consciously using our mouth, our writing, so the way that we use words, that we're on top of it, that we're aware of what we are saying and what spells we are putting out, because we can't get away from our spell. The things that we spell is weaving the story of our life. Weaving gets into Sagittarius. So now let's go ahead and integrate that polarity between Sagittarius and Gemini. So if you know the mythology of Arachnia and who was that? Athena. So Athena was weaving stories of the gods on Mount Olympus that were it's basically like writing the news, but in an artful way. So if I make this big tapestry and wove into the tapestry a story showing Aphrodite as the most beautiful of all, and I show whoever all these figures are doing what they do, and it's in a good light, like to uplift them. Then we have this other woman who comes and shows all the foibles of the gods, shows Aphrodite hooking up with Mars while her husband Hephaestus captures them in a net, and shows that not Jupiter, but Hera's husband, who he, I don't care, whatever. He was found like getting with everybody, getting with all the mortals, and it's just so she creates this tapestry showing the foibles of the gods. So that is the way Sagittarius. We're storytelling in Sagittarius. We're storytelling, and the way that we tell the story has a huge influence on what's going to happen next. So now we look at Sagittarius. This also has to do with where we're going, the traveling that we do, the information. So if we go somewhere and we see something that happens, and then we are seeing it through, we can see it through Gemini, two different lenses. You can post it in your mind as, oh, that's beautiful, the way that woman was holding hands with her child. Or you can post it in your mind about, you can see one thing and write it in your mind any kind of way. So between Sagittarius and Gemini, it has everything to do about our philosophy for our life, evolution of consciousness, the stories that we're telling, the things that we are receiving as far as information. I got back on Instagram for probably about a week, and I had to delete the app again because I noticed a visceral feeling when I would receive information. I was like, ugh. And then when I move away from the information, it was still what we call vrittis, mind waves. It was still leaving an imprint on my mind that I don't want. So being selective about the information that we receive, this is something important for the full moon. So also Mars is at 16 degrees of Gemini, which is the same exact degree point as the moon. They could be closer because by minutes, they're about 6 minutes. They're extremely close. So shortly after the moment of exact opposition between the sun and moon, moon will make an exact conjunction with Mars within the hour. I haven't looked at the chart for that, but I believe it's like 3 or 4 minutes before moon makes an exact conjunction with Mars. So there is a huge martial energy in the full moon. Sarah says, maybe that's why I've been feeling foggy in the brain, been consuming a little too much social media. So what happens with that, you just pay attention for yourself. I feel like some people are built for it, but for me, I'm extremely sensitive, and receiving the information, it does something. So just check in with yourself about that. And because Mars is in this long retrograde cycle, this is another thing I want to mention. So when you're receiving astrological information, I will let you know right now, most astrologers, unless you're looking at some of the old guys and gals, the men and women from the 60s who are still reading astrology, I can make a little list of people who I listen to who they do have a concrete understanding of synodic cycles. Most of the astrologers that you will find on YouTube, even the great ones, are not, I don't know if they know about synodic cycles, but when they give the reports, they're not bringing into context the phase that the planet is in. It is going to make a difference to the impact of what's happening. So Mars is in a phase in the Mars cycle where, so when Mars becomes opposite to the sun, this is means that we're halfway through the retrograde cycle. And let's see, Mars goes through a 700, I think it's 740, something like that, day cycle. So seeing where Mars is, so let me just tell you briefly, This Mars cycle that we're currently in started in it was in Libra season. It was at 15 degrees of Libra. And I believe that, yes, it started in, obviously, it was the sun in Libra. So it was Libra season of 2021. So if you want to do a little bit of Mars homework, which I highly recommend because Mars is crazily attached to what's going to be happening with the full moon, go back to, you can look in your phone, look in your emails, look in your photos, what was happening in your life in Libra season of 2021. That Libra season would be October 2021. Sun and Mars made their conjunction, which was the beginning of the new synodic cycle of Mars. Whatever was seeded at that time about, you want to be looking for themes of how you assert yourself, what was being asserted in the world. Mars is our masculine force. And because its relationship with the sun, you can think about how you take your desires and assert them. So there's this idea of divine will, which has to do with the sun, divine will, and my will. That's Mars. Mars is going to be my personal will. Collectively, Mars tells us about the will of us, and it has to do with, like, what do we all want? What are we all willing to fight for? And of course, that is going to vary from place to place, but the overall theme in every single mythology of what we would fight for. We will fight for women. We will fight for children. Men want their women and children safe. Women want their children safe. The boundary of the home. What would you fight for? Collectively, we can see what is important, what we would fight for, and then you ask yourself that within your own life. I knew Justin would chime in. I was waiting for it. Mars is my personal will. That matches up perfectly with Libra season. Okay, so I feel what's coming on right now is that men and women are learning to refine what masculinity means for us. My friend Eric Roth is teaching a course on the Mars cycle. I highly it's like $237. I highly recommend joining his course because you can, all the in-depth work that I talk about with Venus, like tracking the moon Venus conjunctions every month and what that means and how we do it. My friend Eric is doing that same thing for Mars, which is way less detailed, because Mars, I dare to say, like men, is much less complex in the cycle. There's a mission and then there's the action. And it's pretty like much like that. Whereas with the Venus cycle, it's a constant every month, a new topic that is being seeded with the Venus moon conjunctions, something that we're building, something that we're letting go. And it continues for 584 days, this very complex story. Let's see. What if you fight because you enjoy fighting? Good, very good.
I think so.
Yeah. Sarah, as above, so below. Absolutely. Justin says, oh, stop. Men are simple. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. So to my point, the Mars cycle is much less complex. It is very simple. And it's important to understand it because the cycle that Mars is in collectively is very loud in our news. It's very loud in how we perceive men and how we perceive our own ability to establish boundaries and to protect our own personal boundaries. It's loud. So then in our own personal workings, I feel it's more hazy. It's more hazy. Like I was on a run today and I should have taken a picture of it. I saw a Mars symbol painted on the ground, but it was like washed over, like it was hazy, like cloudy, fuzzy. In my mind, I was like, I think my own masculinity is also kind of fuzzy. So while I have taken synodic cycle courses on all the planets, I may just join Eric's course just to have, because we have the same, we have a lot of similarities in our astrology, and I love him. He's my friend. And it would be really cool to just ground in with Mars for one Mars cycle. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into how this will be affecting or impacting everybody, depending upon, let's see where we're starting this at, 41 minutes in. So at 41 minutes, we're going to go ahead and start looking at everybody's rising sign and see how this will be impacting you. So one more thing I want to mention is that what happens when we have a Mars Moon conjunction? There is more energy. Mars has to do with the desire, the passion. The thing that I like to think about with Mars is where my passion, there's a thin line there's a thin line between love and hate. If you haven't heard the song, Google it. It's great. It's from my childhood. There's a thin line between love and hate. Who sang that song anyway? That was like one of the old Cholo songs with the low riders, and that was like during that phase of my life. So there's a thin line between love and hate. There's a thin line between passion and rage. So one thing, every time I start dating somebody, my instant thing I think about is like, oh, I can't wait to fight with you. I can't wait to have the first fight, because the energy that conjures up from having a fight is very Mars like. And another thing, whenever people, I'm not Puerto Rican, but people would say, oh, like, oh, she's Puerto Rican, so you assume that there's going to be this passion, that spicy Latina, all that stuff is associated with Mars, because there's like a sassy, feisty, fiery energy that is Mars. Let's see. Yes. Okay. Sarah says, I know this. They keep holding, it says held for review, and that's when I get really excited, because I'm like, ooh, we're talking about something in here that is being held for review. The persuaders. Oof. Okay, so we with Mars, we feel that desire in our body. The blood boils, blood comes to the surface, your lips get tingly, you have hot-headedness. You're being called to action with Mars. So when Mars and the moon in the sky come together, there is this feeling in the body viscerally, because the moon brings the light of the planets down into the waters of our physical bodies. My mouth is watering again. Okay, so with that Mars energy, we are being called to action. And no matter what, even if there is no Mars with the moon, at the time of a full moon, full moons you can Google it, have historically been known for more emergency room visits, more violence, more accidents. Encephalitis is real. Water on the brain. It's a real thing. Love you, Sarah. My significant other is the only place I don't want to fight. This is another reason I'm single. I love it. Okay, so yeah, fighting for me is a very playful, fun thing, and I love it. I love to like the antagonist. What do you say? But in a safe way. I don't want to ever do it in a way that's like taken so literal. I like to be like pokey, like poke fight, wrestle, like let's play and let's wrestle and all of that. I love all that stuff. So All right, so we have that Mars energy in with this full moon. We're feeling it now. I'm feeling it now for sure. We're feeling it now. And now let's go ahead and look at through the signs. Who will we start with? We will start with Sagittarius. Wonderful place to start because the sun is in Sagittarius currently. Okay, so for Sagittarius rising, this full moon is going through your first and seventh houses. The first and seventh houses are known as the relationship axis. So, anytime there's a full moon, we're talking about tension of a polarity. For Sagittarius rising, this polarity is being very impactful in your relationship. A lot of people like to say this, what I'm going to say, it's not true. Well, I can be in relationship with God, or it's my relationship with my dog. Well, okay, that's fine for you, but this is actually having to do with the person that you are sharing intimately with, the person who is in your house, the person who smells the food you're cooking and smells what it smells like when that food leaves your body. This is a type of intimacy that is going to include every aspect of your life that you can't hide from. That is what I'm talking about in the polarity between first and seventh house. So for this full moon, I would imagine that there will be some, that's going to be in your seventh house of relationships. So you've got Mars over there. There's something being antagonized with from the outside. So it could be the person you're in a relationship with, or it could be this Martian energy coming into your relationship, wanting you to establish the boundary and to protect and to fight for that boundary. A question that comes to mind, what would you fight for in your relationship? How do you fight in your relationship? Going back to Justin's thing here, let me just touch back in with this chat box. Whenever Tyler and I are feeling tension, we definitely play wrestle. I love it. That's great. And then, physically physically figure it out. I think that's so beautiful for couples. Physically figure it out. Creatively solving problems we don't see eye to eye with at first. Okay, yeah. One thing that let me see, is this a good place to insert this? One thing I like to do in relationship when we're having something that we're not seeing eye to eye on, I like what I do, what I will continue to do. I mean, I'm single too, but bring the person into the room, get undressed, lay down in the bed, side by side, turn the lights off so it's dark, feeling each other's bodies, shoulders next to each other, and employ the nonviolent communication thing. Okay, so what I'm feeling is XYZ. Would you be willing to blah, blah, blah? So yeah, there's disarming and an intimacy that happens instantly when you're laying down vertically in a dark room next to somebody that you love, in a room that you've been laying next to each other before. That always works for me personally. So anyway, let's go back to first and seventh house. So for Sagittarius rising, you're going to be facing some opposition, some resonant polarity in your relationship. What I want to also mention is that we do have, I'm not going to do that. I was going to bring in the Mercury information because Mercury is getting ready to go retrograde. So let me just say this. In the next week, before Mercury goes retrograde, whatever issues are brought up for Sagittarius rising in your relationship, definitely don't wait. Definitely don't wait. Maybe wait till after the full moon to address any conflict. Maybe wait till 2 days after the full moon, but not a week. 2 days, but not more than a week to address whatever needs to happen. Because once Mercury goes retrograde, That's going to be in your second house, and it's going to be related to your resources. You want to solve the issues that are coming up before the retrograde. And so retrograde, don't worry, it's not happening, but the shadow phase starts in 1 week from now. So I think it's on the 12th or so. All right, let's go to the next sign. So the next sign is Capricorn rising. Capricorn rising has the full moon happening in their 12th and 6th house. So Gemini is in their 6th house, and Mars is there. So what could be coming up instantly? I see inflammation, some conflict, some conflicting things having to do with your intestines, with your diet, your nutrition plan, with your wellness plan, because the 6th house has to do with all of those things and has to do with how you set up your routine for your life. Instantly, I next see the person who I know who has Capricorn rising. I'm like, I wonder what's going on with his health, and especially with your digestion, with your gut instincts, your intuition that takes place in the gut. Do you know that so much of your intuition actually happens in the gut? So when they say gut instincts, it's actually grounded in science, that there's nerves in your gut that are sending responses. So there is actual communication happening there. Okay, so that 6th house is being very imposed upon by this heat, inflammation, itis. I would avoid spicy foods or learn to use them homeopathically as a medicine for Capricorn rising. And then the sun is in your 12th house, giving you this illumination of your dreams, illumination of your greatest mystery. I love the 12th house. 12th house done correctly is you being able to access your subconscious information in relationship with collective consciousness, gathering mythology. My Mercury is here in the 12th house. This is why I know so much about many different cultures, mythologies, because in the 12th house, done correctly, the way I have avoided mental institutions, prisons, the other things that are associated with the 12th house is by doing my dream work, collecting information from collective consciousness, associating it with my inner consciousness, and being able to explore those realms and then put them into 6th house practicality. The 12th and the 6th house has to do with the practicality of your dreams and visions. So for Capricorn rising, that's what's coming up for you right now. And Mercury will be going retrograde through your 1st house, which again, in the next week, get whatever things you need to get done. If you have contracts to sign, if you're moving, because Mercury's going, let me not do that. We'll do Mercury later. Let me just focus on the full moon, because I will definitely spend 15 minutes on each sign, and we don't necessarily need that right now. Capricorn this is Aquarius rising. So Aquarius rising has the Sagittarius Gemini axis. So the full moon is going to be in your 5th house. 5th house is your inner child, has to do with your children. It's explicitly speaking to, if you have children, it is about your children. If you don't have children, we focus more on the inner child. If you have children, we also still focus on your inner child. I have so many things to say about that and how that all plays out with the way that we raise our kids, having to do with, it's a whole healing process for how we are healing our inner child. And also just how you feed them, stories you tell them, and then what stories you tell yourself about what you can or cannot do because of the children. There's so many. We're staying together for the children, or I can't do that because I have kids. So for people with Aquarius rising, your 5th house, your creative self-expression, your inner child wants to come out and play. And there is this Mars itis. So you may be feeling conflict or pressure. I see this as coming like, of course, Mars coming into your fifth house is getting you to establish boundaries and fight for your boundaries, especially around your creative self expression. What is it that you are willing to fight for you to be able to honestly and openly express your inner child creativity, to be in wonder and the word in Sanskrit chamatkara, which is childlike wonder, amusement of this like, oh, like anything is possible. And I go back to the reading Rainbow because of me. I don't, and it's probably so old for many people, but the reading Rainbow was like, this rainbow comes on, you can do anything, you can go anywhere. So for people with Aquarius rising, that fifth house is being heated up. And you will feel that viscerally to get you to take action in your creations, how you are also representing yourself. I think about fifth house, like when I step into fifth house role, it's like, what am I wearing? How am I presenting myself? And taking the time to create the look of how I feel that will express to the world who I am. That's a fifth house, and that's happening for you, Aquarius rising. So let's look at, I'm not sure what that means, Justin. Easy LeVar Burton. LeVar Burton is a national treasure. I don't know what that is. Please explain. Okay, so for Pisces rising, you are having this full moon in your fourth house. So it's activating that whole fourth and 10th. I don't think I did that for the last sign of Aquarius. So sorry about that. If you have a beef with me, send it in the comments and I will explain the axis of the 11th and fifth house. I didn't do that very well for Aquarius rising. We're moving on. So Pisces rising, all my Pisces rising people that I know are popping up in my head. So I want to give you a good reading. So your fourth house of home, your womb, the lineage you come from, the comfort of your sanctuary that you have created for your life so that you can, not so that, we just need a sanctuary. We just need the comfort. Pisces rising, especially, your fourth house is extremely important because this is where you heal, you regenerate yourself. Sarah, of course, it's you. And so that fourth house, your womb, your breasts, this, because the fourth house has to do with creation. Let me use this word, regeneration of yourself. This is healing. Regeneration is healing. Regeneration is also regenerating your cells and your DNA through life. So it has to do with all of those parts of your body that regenerate life. So when that is very secure and nourished, and you've taken really good care of your fourth house things, moving into the 10th house of your contribution to the world is more seamless. So this full moon is in your fourth house, giving you pressure to, it's like Mars coming into your house. Let me be Mars for a second and come into your house. I'm going to be like behind you, like pushing you, like, whoa, where's this and where's that? And you're like, would you get off of me? But the push is for you to create a sanctuary that is harmonious and conducive. Conducive is a watery word that I'm using here for the fourth house. Conducive, conductivity for your regenerative fluids, your regenerative organs, your ability to heal yourself. This also looks like going into the kitchen and creating elixirs and foods that are regenerative, that are helping you to heal. And then in Sagittarius season, because the sun is in your 10th house, your contribution to the world, now from this place of regeneration, you're able to go and do much more in the contribution to the world. We can never give from an empty cup. So in the 4th house right now, the full moon is pushing you. It's not, Mars is not a pleasant feeling in any house. It's not it's like irritation in that house. When we get to Taurus, I will tell you a little bit about my irritations in that house. But so yeah, you're going to be working with Mars, getting all up in your ability to regenerate yourself, heal yourself. And the 4th house is connection with your mother and your lineage. So connecting in with the ancestors and the warriors in your ancestry. I took a course with this lady named Tori. I can't remember her last name, but her school is called Sacred Ancestry. And something that she taught me, which I haven't fully, maybe I should with this full moon. Oh yeah, I feel it. Yes, something that she taught me, and it's a concept that I've read in other books. I haven't employed it fully. And this might be something that Justin and all of the other very Mars comfortable people can really relate with, is connecting in with the warriors in your ancestry. Warriors in your blood actually are your white blood cells. Like, we actually have warriors in our body, but then connecting with the warriors of our ancestry. So I would be going to my Mayan and African ancestors and looking for who the warriors are, calling them up to the surface. I'm calling my warriors to the surface. So you can even just say that out loud. You don't call any ancestor without a purpose. So before calling them, you bring something red. You can bring a tray of food, red candles, red foods. Bring an offering, call them, and then employ them. I'm calling my warriors, and then you give them a job. And I definitely have a job for my warriors. So I will be doing this ritual on the full moon. It's perfect. So in the Telegram group, I will be sharing a video. I'll make something for you guys, for you beautiful people. You're not guys. I can't stand when people say, you guys. I'm like, I'm not a guy, first of all. And even guys, you're men. Okay, so I will be creating something for you to get an idea of what type of ritual you could be doing on the full moon to employ the warriors in your ancestry and in your blood, and to really work with calling in that Mars energy and putting it to work. If you don't put it to work, it will work you. And that's just how that is. And it's happening constantly all the time in every phase of our life, and all the cycles that we're going through. Sometimes we are not employing the energy that's in our life. And so it just is doing stuff because we didn't tell it what to do. All right. So that was for you, Sarah, Pisces rising. Let's move on. And next is Aries rising. So Aries rising is experiencing this full moon in the 3rd house of communication, of thought processes, cognition, what you consider interesting. It's how you're receiving information and how you're communicating. And then the 9th house, which is where your sun is your philosophy for life, your spirituality, the affiliation that you have with different spiritual groups, associations that you have with colleges or university, or like going into, I'm thinking about this school that I signed up with that has, it's an academy. So there's spirituality, there's health, there's all these different things. That is a very 9th house thing. Did I just say 9th house? Yes. Okay, so Sagittarius is in your 9th house. Okay, so for the 3rd house, with Mars in your 3rd house, you may be having conflicting information coming in that you're like, I didn't want to know that. I didn't, like, the things that you were thinking about or that you had as a baseline for your perception are getting a rude awakening. and you need it. We all need it, but it's in your third house. So you especially must need it because it's happening. And Mars is going to be in your third house for a while. So this has been an ongoing situation, but the moon for all of us, everything that I've mentioned so far, Mars has been there. The moon activates it in a way that makes it viscerally felt. And because it's in opposition to the sun, it will be felt to the whatever ith degree, a huge degree that we're viscerally feeling this. So now you have your ninth house being activated by Sagittarius. The information that was conflicting may get you to want to travel to a new place to go study a thing. My friend was like, why don't you just go to Guatemala and learn the birth work that you're studying? Or why don't you just go to Guatemala and find a cacao farm and just get with them and like source it directly. You don't need to hire a middle person. And that's what this third, for you, the third house, the information that's being conflicting right now, it can inspire something for you to travel, to go to the new university, to go to straight to the source, to change your philosophy on life. And there's a huge movement with the sun there to get you going in a new direction from this conflict of information that you're having with Mars and the full moon, the Mars full moon in your third house. Now, Taurus rising. Mars has been in the second house of resources. And now with the moon meeting Mars at 16 degrees in your second house, there may be some sort of force that comes into your second house of pleasure, comfort, resources. So second house is also your security. Like so security is what makes you feel secure? What makes you feel secure? So for Taurus rising, you're asking that question. Having money to buy food, to pay for the rent, having home security, which for me at a lot of phases in my life and in my mind means that there's a man here projecting his voice. I don't have it now because of certain reasons, but I used to keep a big pair of combat boots that were like a size 12 at my front door. So it looked like there was a man who lived here. I need to go get some more of those. But so it's like that. It's like literal security. And then so when you, with the Mars going in the second house, there can be either a masculine force, a man, something that is heated, that is giving conflict to your sense of security. That's the word of the day. And for the full moon, now the moon shining in the light of Mars into that second house, it initiates you to take action. Beyond what can I do? Do I have these home security things? Do I have this something set up to bring in a sense of establishing boundaries, protecting the boundaries, fighting for the boundaries? So from the second house sense of security, Sagittarius is in the eighth house of intimacy, of inheritance, other people's money, merging. So second house is life. Eighth house is the absence of, which we call it death, life and death. It's literally, second house is literally going to be like the fruits growing and the abundance, which gives us the sense of security and ability to relax and be at ease. The eighth house is literally the darkness. It's like when like winter. So there's no fruits growing. It's iced over. It's cold. And all we have is the hope of a new thing growing next year. But we have also, it's like to be in the eighth house is to really feel the intensity of energy from the space where the fruits used to be. I don't know how to say this. I have a feeling of when somebody dies, there is this aura or this plasmic field that's tangible from where they used to be, and there was a warmth from their body physically being there. It's easy for me to think about in my bed when there used to be a warmth of a physical body in my bed, and I'm used to that feeling, but then I'm sleeping and there's nobody there. There's a coldness there, but a very tangible memory, which memory is it's water. Literally, mem means water, of where the outlines of that body used to be. Everything that body represents is, the companionship, the security of another person being there, somebody else who can do some of the things in the house. So for people with Taurus rising, all of these issues are coming up. Intimacy. So in the eighth house, Sagittarius sun is shining, illuminating a light right into, are you vulnerable enough to be intimate with somebody else? Also coming up is, do you owe things? Like, what debt do you have? Because Sagittarius in the eighth house is going to be illuminating inheritance and debt. What's been coming up for me a lot is like, I really feel this strong sense to get my two older kids into the kitchen and teach them all the components of running my business. And that is an inheritance to them, to learn how to make medicine, how to run the online website, how to do the shipping process. So those things come up. Generational wealth is associated with the second and eighth house. And let me move on. So let me check in with this. Okay, Justin, what is your irritation? My shield and armor make me feel secure. Samurai sword, definitely with Mars. Send me your address. Oh my God, Justin, will you honestly send? I need them to be old. So I was going to go buy some, but the combat boots, if they're old and if they have your energy on them, that is exactly what I need. And I'm not kidding you. I will take them with me in my van when I go on trips and put the shoes outside of my van on. Like, I do this when I park the van. I'll put a little welcome mat and then I'll put the boots near the welcome mat. So it's very obvious that, and then I have Dakota, whose bark is very loud. So that's kind of what I've been working on as a Taurus rising, to build more security, which will allow me more access to intimacy. Because a thing that Taurus rising can do with the second and eighth house is use the intimate partner for the security. And I don't want to do that. So for everybody working with polarity, you want to see how, where Mars and the moon are, how you will use people, places, or things in the opposite sign to give you what it is that you are trying to create in your life. And I'm not saying it's wrong. Use people if you need to. If that's where you're at, do it. And that there is another way. So this is a Uranian experience of going beyond time to connect in with cosmic consciousness, to create solutions for our lives that don't necessarily include using people. Okay, let me read some of these. Justin says winter and puts a heart on it because Justin loves winter. When I think of winter, Justin is my archetype. In death, Justin says, in death, there is a cultivation through which new life can come. Absolutely, 100%. Second and eighth house is all about compost and all the metaphors that we can attain from compost. Sarah says, yes, I was just about to say compost as well. And you all know me and you know how much I love my compost. I currently have two, I used to call them newts, but they're actually salamanders, which are a hybrid between lizards and frogs, I think. But they're earth and land, earth and water creatures. So they can be in water and they like to be in a place that's kind of both. So I will go out there and put water into the compost like every once in a while when I'm thinking about them. And they're also related with Sagittarius because of their component. I'll send you all a picture in the Telegram group because they're so beautiful, and they're kind of like sheen with red, as well as having these cute little like things that go in water, but also having anyway, I'll show you. This is the alchemy that witches used to pass down. Ooh, what are you talking about there? Yes, teach them. This is the alchemy. Oh, with the polarity, 100%. I'll send a pair I wore in Iraq. Thank you. I will send you money. I know you're going to say no, but I will at least cover your postage. That's so awesome. I wouldn't want to I wouldn't want to mess with Justin's energy. Justin, you're a hero. Okay, where are we now? Let's go. So that was Taurus rising. Now Gemini rising. For Gemini rising, this is happening in your first house. So you have been having Mars in your first house it's going to be there for a total of 7 months, and it is very intense on yourself, your sense of self. So there can be a Mars energy that is feeling attacking. So for all of us with Mars is always going to be, as it's transiting through the houses, a forceful energy coming into an area of our life to get us to establish boundaries, protect our boundaries, and fight for our boundaries when necessary. So the question is, what am I willing to fight for in reference to my sense of self? This can be really intense I'm going to say this is really intense. So people who are Gemini rising, I am empathizing with you, although I think Gemini as an archetype doesn't really care much about astrology. So you're probably not watching this video. But Gemini rising is really going through a lot right now with this full moon being in Gemini. So the moon is going to bring the light of Mars right into your awareness of who am I? And that is also going to impact your thank you so much, Gemini sun. You're here. So I guess my last statement may not have been correct. But so this is going to be impacting the totality of who am I in relation to who are you in the 7th house. So this is also impacting your relationship axis, but more so in the sense of you being Marsed. There is a force coming in who wants you. I'm not saying this, not like, don't think like the force that you're feeling. I don't know what they want, but it is for you to establish boundaries, protect your boundaries, and answer the question, what am I willing to fight for in defending my sense of self? The little phrase that's coming in, there was an old man who used to come get massages for me once a week. And the thing, he was a Jewish Sufi. And the phrase that he would always ask, are you more interested in protecting your current beliefs, or are you more interested in learning about the new possibilities? So that's for you, for Gemini rising. Are you interested in learning about what else is possible for how you express your own Mars energy? Because that's what's being asked in your first house, and that will impact how you relate with other people. Okay, so that was Gemini rising. Now we're going to move into Cancer rising. You have the full moon going through your 12th house. So Mars is in your 12th house. This can be really keeping you awake at night. Mars in the 12th house it's like infecting, or how do I say this better? Because the 12th house does have to do with immunity. It does have to do with the unity of consciousness, with oneness. boundarylessness. Mars coming in, I'm going to say infecting, because it is pushing through where there's no boundary anyway in your unconscious mind, and giving this heat and this stirring you to rousing you to action, and you could be very sleepless right now, because it's waking you up in the middle of the night to get you to take action in your health and wellness, because that polarity, that means Sagittarius is currently in your sixth house, and your wellness routines are at the forefront of your consciousness right now, because this polarity, I see this like waking you up at night and getting you to focus on, okay, did I drink coffee today? People's wellness routines are literally everything. And for you, people, everybody with Cancer rising, you're really finding that out right now. If you drink coffee after 4, it is irritating the lining in your the gray matter in your brain, and it's like literally overstimulating you. So your nervous system is going to be highly active. Gemini in the 12th house. This is always an issue for you. For everybody with Cancer rising, Gemini in your 12th house, don't sleep with your phone near you, because the information coming from your phone is going to be triggering too much of a response of other people's business into your sacred space of dreams. Your nervous system is being illuminated right now as a place for you to put your attention. Am I nourishing my nervous system? Am I overstimulating my nervous system? And how is that impacting my wellness routines? Okay, so Sagittarius is in your sixth house. This can also, I meant to mention this for everybody when we talked about sixth houses, is that your pets. I didn't ever care about that aspect of astrology until I had pets and had a transit through my sixth house, and it actually did impact my pets. And I'm seeing now how much having your pets, anything go on with your pets, it really impacts your whole entire life. So that could be coming up for people with Cancer rising. Just, there's something going on possibly with the health of your pets and how that impacts your wellness routine when you need to be constantly tending to your pets. All right, so I think we're not almost done. Oh my gosh. So we're on Leo rising. I'm going to make these a little shorter now. So Leo rising is having the full moon going through 11th house and 5th house. So the full moon is in your 11th house. Mars has been in your 11th house. The moon is bringing that light of Mars into your dreams, goals, aspirations, your peer groups, the groups of people who I think about all the time, like a conference that you go to. Like if I went to an astrology conference and it's like all my teachers and students and peers, other people who are interested in astrology, that's the 11th house. So for you, whatever it is that you're interested in, the conference room that you go to, this is being impacted. You may be having a conflict with people who are in that peer group, and that conflict can be changing who your peer group is. Maybe you're getting new goals, dreams, and aspirations, or you're learning to assert yourself differently in that space. And Sagittarius is in your 5th house, so you are moving into a new way of expressing, of creative self-expression with Sagittarius in the 5th. Okay, so for Gemini, this is Virgo rising. You have Mars going through the 10th house and the full moon bringing in the light of Mars into your contribution to the world. So this might be giving some aggravation, irritation, assertive energy coming into your career space. For people who are employed by other people, you may be having conflict with your boss or somebody higher up at work, somebody who is like uh, not necessarily, it could be just people at work too, but I feel like this is more asking you to change how you work or change your role in your work. So to express more of your Mars nature, to again, I'll say this again, define your boundaries or establish boundaries, protect them, and ask the question, what am I willing to fight for at work? Now, Sagittarius, we're in Sagittarius season, so the sun is going through your fourth house of generation, healing, your sanctuary, your home, and your ancestry. How you heal and regenerate yourself is being hugely illuminated by the sun. And that whole axis, they play off of each other. So the healing that you do in your body is going to also inform how you show up at work. So for Libra rising, Mars is in your ninth house. So traveling, Mars and the full moon. So if you have, I guess we all have a philosophy for our life, higher education, intelligence, things that we are studying may be changing. There may be conflict or something asking you to step up and be, the Mars posture. They're like this, you're at school, you're studying something, and then you're impacted by some Mars energy. It causes you to stand up and it calls Mars out of you so that you're able to establish a boundary, you're able to protect a boundary, and you're asking the question, what am I willing to fight for in relation to my spirituality, to my beliefs, to my ability to travel? Ability to travel has been such a huge thing since the nodal axis went through Sagittarius and Gemini. So some of those topics may be touched upon. I didn't even think about that. Some of those topics may be touched upon again. Like, are you willing to fight for your ability to travel? Especially for people with Libra rising, because it's going through your ninth house. Okay, so now we have Scorpio rising. And thank you for everybody for sticking with me, even though I may have already read your rising sign, but you're still listening. I appreciate that. Scorpio rising has Mars in their eighth house. Eighth house, like I had mentioned before in Taurus, for Taurus rising, the eighth house has to do with inheritance, your regenerative wealth, regenerative wealth. So that's businesses that you acquire through the generations, through money that you've inherited. Eighth house is also the person that you are most deeply intimate with. So because like if you're married and somebody in your family dies, the inheritance coming in will impact also your spouse and your children. So the eighth house is really deep and intimate, and people don't know about the eighth house. Like, we don't share that information. I can be really close with, say, Sarah. I've talked to her today. We text each other. I may not know about her regenerative wealth and her generational wealth and but her partner will. So we can be close with people, seventh house and beyond us, from the seventh house downward. But from the eighth house up, it's like a whole different realm where it's really selective. So for you, Scorpio rising, this eighth house has the Martian force of the full moon bringing the light of Mars into your eighth house. What am I willing to fight for in relation to my generational wealth? There could also be something coming up with inherit like large sums of money. So I would be looking at investments that you've made. If this were me, if I had Scorpio rising, I would be looking at my investments, seeing if this full moon triggers a time to do a buy sell, or to move your assets around. Something's happening there. So pay attention, do some more research into what it is that you're invested in. And remember, for everybody, this is something that was seeded on May 30th of 2022 when we had the new moon in Gemini. So this is a culmination of a 6-month process. All right, now let's move on. Oh, we're done. We started with Sagittarius rising and now we're finished. So yay. So let me know if anybody has questions about Slow Media Group. Thank you so much for joining. I have not seen you in these calls before, but I appreciate you being here. And what I was saying about Gemini is that they don't generally care about astrology. So, and that's just that maybe that's just from my, my experiences. Okay, so Irene says, I was going to get my cats fixed. Irene, do you have the full moon going through your 6th and 12th is my question. And then Sarah says, oh my God, May 30th is Tyler's birthday. Okay, so for Tyler especially, what was seeded on May 30th is being brought to a culmination now. So you would want to, since this is your partner, your 7th and 8th house person, what I would do is definitely, I'd just ask him too, for him, and you will want to look at where Sagittarius and Gemini are going through his life and just check in about those topics. Okay, so I don't see any questions, so we can go ahead and finish now. An hour and a half. Wow. Thank you all so much for coming and for talking in the chat. I had so much fun. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, let me just give myself a plug. I never do this, but I do have a membership where we have there's a backlog of classes that are exclusive for the membership. And then I have a new course that is taken directly from a 1-year program I had to teach you astrology, how it relates, the zodiac relates to your physical body. I teach yoga that relates to the zodiac, which relates to the organ systems of your body. I'm creating a class that goes specifically through mutable fixed cardinal, or how it goes cardinal, fixed, mutable, and I teach it the way that I learned it and the way that makes sense to me, so that you can look at an astrology chart and understand what you need to know for your life. And there is an option to get mentorship so that you are learning how to read astrology for other people. So I have been reading astrology professionally since 2014. I've read hundreds and hundreds of charts. My view of astrology is different in that I went to the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School. I have more of a visual relationship with the planets, where you are on Earth, and I combine the teachings of Tantra Yoga and Ayurveda. So it also includes holistic health. So like what season that we're in informs the foods that you're eating. It informs the activity, like lifestyle things that are appropriate. So the course is going to be really weaving all that together, so you can either feel confident reading charts for other people, or that you will be able to feel confident running your life and planning your life according to the seasons, knowing how the sun, moon, and stars are, that relationship as above, so below actually is impacting you. If nothing else, join the Telegram group, because we're on there every day. Every day I post the daily astrology. It's a lot of fun. And you also get access to these calls, which what I'm doing now is doing it live, but then it's only available for everybody for 2 days. And then it goes on to the membership page, and the replays are all there. So thank you all so much. I appreciate you. I love you. I can't wait to see you again soon. And look in the Telegram group for the full moon ritual that's going to be including calling our ancestral warriors and employing them. All right. Thank you.